office and everything, and I went, holy jeez, how did we get back here where we now need 11 launches to get one crew to the moon? We're never going to get there.
Recently, former NASA Administrators Charles Bolden, who led NASA from 2009 to 2017, and Jim Bridenstine, who served from 2018 to 2021 during the Trump administration, joined Mike French, founder of the Space Policy Group, for a fireside chat to close out the American Astronautical Society's 2025 Von Braun Space Exploration Symposium in Huntsville, Alabama. French steered the conversation toward one of the biggest debates happening in space policy right now: the recent changes to NASA's Artemis program architecture. Bridenstine, who ran the agency during Trump's first term, had previously criticized NASA's plan to use SpaceX's Starship for the Artemis III mission during a Senate hearing in September, though he didn't suggest any alternative at the time. At another event on October 21st, just one day after Acting Administrator Sean Duffy announced plans to reevaluate SpaceX's Artemis III contract, Bridenstine avoided commenting, saying only, "I'll leave those decisions to him." But at the symposium, his tone was much clearer. Administrator Duffy is doing exactly the right thing, Bridenstine said, emphasizing that a successful lunar return depends on stronger cooperation between political leaders and the space industry, not just in setting goals, but in agreeing on how to reach them. Once again, he doubled down on the importance of NASA's Space Launch System, or SLS, and the Orion spacecraft. So, if our leaders are saying we're going to beat China back to the moon, then we need programs that actually make that possible. That means taking some specific actions. For example, and I think Senator Cruz made the right move here, when he included funding for 2 additional SLS rockets in the reconciliation bill. That was critical. If we're serious about reaching the moon before China, then we've got to rely on the SLS. We have to use the systems that work right now, today. The SLS is proven. Orion is proven. The European Service Module is proven. What we don't have yet is a lander. That's the one missing piece. Bridenstine argued that the U.S. should consider mobilizing its resources the way it did under the Defense Production Act of 1950, a Korean War-era law that gave the president authority to direct domestic industries in the name of national defense. "We need to go all in to build a lander as fast as possible," he said, outlining his vision. It would be a small, empowered team, maybe one granted authority by executive order, because this is a national security issue. "We're going to beat China to the moon." He went on to say that the effort should look something like a skunkworks project, a tightly focused, fast-moving team with freedom to innovate. For reference, skunkworks is the legendary Lockheed Martin division behind some of history's most advanced and secretive aircraft designs. Once again, the discussion circled back to concerns about just how complex SpaceX's lunar mission design has become. When you really think about the mission plan, Starship is an incredible vehicle, no doubt about it. It's going to revolutionize access to orbit, carry massive payloads, and dramatically cut costs. But as a lunar lander, it's a different story. Developing that version will take time. Some experts estimate it could require dozens of consecutive Starship launches, back to back, each carrying out orbital refueling with cryogenic propellants. After that, the lander would have to head to near rectilinear halo orbit around the moon, where it would wait for the crew's arrival. Meanwhile, NASA would need to launch the SLS, Orion, and the European Service Module, all within a tight window of just a few weeks. And here's the real problem. If even one of those Starship launches experiences a delay or failure, the entire sequence has to restart from the beginning. That's the current mission architecture. And according to Bridenstine, the odds of beating China to the moon under that system approach 0. He insisted that something fundamentally different is needed. At that point, Charles Bolden jumped in, pointing out that one of the main reasons NASA's previous lunar program, Constellation, was canceled was because of unnecessary complexity, the same issue that seems to have crept back into Artemis. He argued that setting arbitrary deadlines like before China or by the end of a presidential term doesn't actually motivate contractors in any meaningful way. Instead, NASA leadership needs to clearly communicate how much funding is guaranteed, and then work with companies to build both optimistic and realistic schedules. Only then, Bolden said, can NASA give the president a target date that actually makes sense. Naturally, SpaceX didn't take those remarks lightly. In a series of posts on X, the company responded, thanking the former NASA administrators for their service, but questioning their objectivity. Like many Americans, we're grateful for Mr. Bridenstine's leadership at NASA, SpaceX wrote. He deserves credit for launching the Artemis program. However, after leaving NASA, he founded a lobbying firm called the Artemis Group, representing several aerospace companies currently competing for NASA contracts. His recent criticism of Starship is either misguided or intentionally misleading. The company went on to note that Starship was chosen during Bridenstine's own tenure, through a fair and open selection process. NASA's evaluation team, composed of career civil servants, identified Starship as the lowest risk and lowest cost option by a wide margin. That decision, SpaceX pointed out, was upheld multiple times, even after protests and lawsuits from competitors delayed progress for months. Mr. Bridenstine's recent push for a new lander, even invoking the Defense Production Act, is being reported as if it's the neutral opinion of a former NASA administrator, SpaceX said. It's not. He's a paid lobbyist working to secure billions more for clients already behind schedule and over budget. Honestly, it was a surprisingly measured response from SpaceX, considering the tension between Elon Musk and acting administrator Sean Duffy leading up to it. To reinforce confidence in its progress, SpaceX published a blog post on its official website titled "To the Moon and Beyond." In it, the company announced that it had already completed 49 major milestones for NASA's Human Landing System program, a significant step toward developing the Starship lunar lander that will carry astronauts to the surface. These milestones cover everything from subsystem development to infrastructure readiness, all crucial for a safe human landing. SpaceX emphasized that it only receives payments after successfully completing each milestone, and most have been finished on time or even ahead of schedule. While the company didn't list every milestone in the post, they're publicly available on its site. SpaceX also shared that many of its remaining HLS milestones now center on flight demonstrations, including an in-orbit propellant transfer test. Meanwhile, work has already begun on building a flight-ready Starship HLS cabin, not just a mock-up, but one equipped with working avionics, power systems, communications, life support, and thermal control. This flight-capable prototype will allow engineers to test integrated systems, prove near-mission readiness, and provide astronauts with a realistic training environment. The next major milestones for the human landing system include a long-duration orbital flight test and a propellant transfer demonstration in space. Their timing depends on how upcoming launches of the new Starship Phi-3 perform, but both are currently slated for 2026. Orbital refueling is central to NASA's Artemis plan. It's what enables Starship to deliver up to 100 tons of cargo directly to the lunar surface. Everything from rovers and habitats to equipment for building a permanent human outpost on the moon. The mission plan begins with one Starship launching from Starbase and remaining in orbit for an extended period, gathering data on its engines, thermal protection, and overall system behavior during a long-duration flight. Then, a second Starship, modified as a tanker, will launch to rendezvous with the first vehicle and demonstrate propellant transfer in orbit. Starship V3 vehicles are built with docking ports and upgraded propellant interfaces that can support both launch operations and in-space refueling. The system will use Dragon Eye navigation sensors, the same ones successfully used on SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft during numerous ISS dockings, now enhanced and tested for Starship's unique needs. SpaceX has also experimented with new propellant sensors on recent flights, using radio frequency technology to measure fuel levels in microgravity. Ultimately, SpaceX's message couldn't be clearer. With a simplified mission plan and steady progress, the first crewed lunar landing of this century could happen much sooner than most people expect. For now, NASA continues exploring ways to accelerate its lunar return timeline. Both SpaceX and Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company, have submitted updated proposals to the agency. SpaceX confirmed, "We've shared and are actively assessing a simplified mission architecture and concept of operations that we believe will bring astronauts back to the moon faster, while also improving crew safety." The company, however, didn't release further details. Blue Origin, on the other hand, is pursuing its own path. The company holds a separate NASA contract to develop its Blue Moon Mark II human-rated lunar lander, expected to support the Artemis V mission, likely sometime in the early 2030s. In the meantime, Blue Origin is preparing a smaller, uncrewed version called Blue Moon Mark I, set for its first lunar landing attempt next year. Even though Mark I is smaller, it's still larger than the Apollo-era lunar module. And unlike Starship or Mark II, it won't require orbital refueling to complete its mission. So, what do you think? Will Starship actually make it to the moon on schedule? Or will NASA end up turning to another approach, or even another company to get there first? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As for me, the best perspective comes from former NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, who summed it up perfectly. He recalled, "This was one of my debates with, well, I forget which chairman it was, who asked, 'Aren't you worried that China might beat us back to the moon?' when we were talking about transitioning to commercial space. I told him, 'To be honest, sir, not at all. There's only one first time, and we've already done that. So let's just make sure that when we return, we stay there for good.'